When you start living with the end in mind, everything starts to change. What are people going to say about you? What message is your life going to speak when you're long gone? Because you weren't born by accident. You didn't just happen to be where you're at and happen to watch this video. There is always a reason.
Hey. How's it going, guys? It's Coach Joe here from fuselife. I want to welcome you to the fuselife podcast, episode number 1. This podcast has been a long time coming. It's been in my heart for a while. It's actually a podcast I've been searching for a long time. And I'm really excited that I get to bring it. So the whole idea behind this podcast is to explore the subject of Jesus, the real Jesus, the kingdom, peak performance, what the real meaning of life is, and going in deep into different subjects that most religious ways of thinking don't want to talk about, don't want to address, but are a big part of society, are a big part of real life. I've had many questions over the last 11 years that I haven't felt I could even ask many people. Subjects that are almost taboo, that you can't touch. I'm super excited to go there in this podcast. So I want to welcome you on this journey. My name is Joseph Wilson. I live in Auckland, New Zealand. I run a fitness training business currently. I am 33 years old. I'm married to a beautiful woman named Kirsten, and I have 2 amazing, gorgeous little kitties, Adele, who is 3.5, and Zaya, who is 1.5. I currently lead a house church, a gathering of about 25 people who love Jesus and are sold out. But I have been through the ringer when it comes to religious stuff. And so this is just a casual podcast where I get to talk about subjects that are important to me and also explore peak performance. Like I said before, I believe that Jesus, the real Jesus, not the religious one we make up and the one we make statues of, but the real Jesus was a peak performer. When you look at his life and you look at the 3.5 years that he was in ministry, he ended up doing so much stuff that it says there are not enough books to record what he did. He is a pure example of where the super meets the natural, where heaven meets earth, and stuff manifested around his life that cannot be mimicked by any human, by any normal human. And so my journey actually began in India. I was born there in Hyderabad, which is in the south of India. I grew up there and I went to church. I was taken to church, Sunday school, vacation Bible school. I took part in all the dramas. I took part in all the songs and the acting and all that kind of stuff. And I learned the stories and I went through all that kind of stuff. And when I was 11, my family moved to New Zealand and I've been here ever since. So it's about 22 years now. When I came here, I still kind of went to church, all that kind of stuff. But when I was about 17, 18, I started to back off that a little bit. I wasn't sure if God is actually real. Most people that I saw had 2 different lives. They had like a church life and a real life. And I was like, why is your church life so fake? These are the questions that started coming up in me, and I had nowhere to go with them. So when I was about 22, actually, let's rewind. When I was 19, I took my first sip of alcohol and I began a journey of partying, enjoying drinks, enjoying all kinds of stuff. I was already messing around with girls and doing all that kind of stuff that we normally end up getting into. But when I was about 19, the partying began. It started to intensify, the drinking, all that kind of stuff. And, I just had a good time, or that's what I thought was happening. When I was about 22, 22 and a half, I got invited to this church, and the guy who invited me called me a few times, and eventually I didn't want to make him feel bad, so I went. And when I went there, I remember these guys were so happy in this building that I didn't believe it was a church. They were worshiping and they were dancing, they were smiling. People looked like they were high, and I was like, man, this looks like a club. Like, how can this be church? You shouldn't be so happy in church. And anyway, I sat down quietly and I was trying to be all holy, and I remember that service just being like, what the heck's going on here? Anyway, I went there late and I left early. A few weeks later, he invited me again, and again I went just to not make him feel bad. But then my life started to really speed up and intensify. Like the partying intensified, the some of the dumb stuff I was doing intensified. And one day, finally, it was June 8th, 2008. I went to this church, and I was drunk from the night before. I had slept a couple of hours, and I drove all the way to this church. I don't know why. And I got there, and I sat in the back seat, and I remember that the worship was going on, and all this kind of stuff. And the whole time I was like, why am I even here? And there was a girl in the front who was leading worship. She dropped to her knees and she just started to pour her heart out, like sing the song in a different language and then sing English. And I'm like, what the heck's going on? And I feel a heat go through my body and I sobered up. This heat went through my body. I sobered up and I remember going, what the heck just happened? And I looked around me. There was no one there. But I knew that now I was sober. Just before, I was drunk. I felt useless. Almost like a hangover, but a real strong one, like I'm still drunk. So I suddenly was sobered up and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And then I start to see my whole childhood in my mind. I remembered everything I went through as a kid. And suddenly I'm like, man, is God real? So I asked him that question and I'm like, okay, look, if there is a God, if you're real, you show me and I will give you my life. In the next 30 days, you show me you're real, I'll give you my life. But if you're not real, then I'm not walking into any church building again. And in those next 30 days, every night, I would go to bed, and when I'm lying down, I would just be weeping because I was feeling some kind of love and acceptance that I didn't even understand, that made no sense to me. But it was so real, it was starting to change me. I didn't know at that time that God is a father, that Jesus came to reveal the Father. I only knew all this religious stuff, God is somewhere far away and you better be a good boy and please him and all that kind of stuff. So all of this is going on and my life started to change and I started to see these miracles in the church. Like someone had cancer, they got healed. I was like, what? Is this even real? Then I remember seeing a demon, like someone with a spirit in them, and it was manifesting and it got cast out of them. And I just remember going, what the heck is this? And how come I didn't see any of this my whole life going to church? And then I started to read the Bible. I ended up buying a Bible, right? This is the first Bible I had. It's a little NIV, small, easy to read Bible. I bought this book and I remember opening it up and not putting it down for about 3 hours one night, starting at Genesis, just reading the story. It was like it came alive to me. But before that, I used to read the Bible in my house that my mom and dad had to put me to sleep. That's how boring it used to be for me. So something started to shift, and that was when I was like, oh my gosh, like God's real, this whole thing's real. How come I didn't know this before? Why isn't this everywhere? And that began my journey, and that was 2008, June 8th. It's been about 11 years now, and I haven't looked back, and it's been great. And so the reason I'm doing this podcast is just to have open, real discussions about everything, to talk about some of the religious stuff that's actually not that good, not that real, to talk about things that we've all experienced that most people are scared to bring up. I started to see that there are a lot of subjects that we kind of hide behind. We don't talk about them. And I wanted to create a forum where we can just go there. So, along with this, I'm going to interview people that are doing supernatural things all around the world that make no sense, people that have their own stories, some amazing stories. I want to interview people that are leaders doing, like leading churches or doing different things that might have even different beliefs, like different denominations. Why do we have these denominations? What makes us different? What makes us the same? And start to explore these subjects that I've never had a place to talk about before. Along with this, I want to talk about peak performance. So I run a business. I run a coaching mentoring business also. So that's two businesses. I'm leading a house church. I have a family with a wife and two children. There are people that I'm walking with and mentoring and discipling. And there's a lot going on in my world. And so peak performance is important to me. And I love talking about health. I think that it's very important that holistic health is looked at. Many times in religious circles, people get so spiritual that they ignore the body and they ignore the soul. And so a big part of what I do in Fuse Life is talk about the spirit, soul, body, heart connection and how these four aspects are in every human. These four components make up human beings, and they're so important, and it becomes so important that these four are looked after. It doesn't matter if you're spiritually so in tune and so great, but in your soulish realm, which is your mind, your will, your emotions, and even your memory, that in that realm you're so insecure, you won't know how to walk this thing out. It doesn't matter if your spirit's flourishing and your soul's doing all right, but your body, you're overweight, you're lazy, you can't even walk up to your driveway or jog a kilometer, that you are not being a good steward of your physical body. And so these are subjects I want to cover. How do you biosync? Not biohack, but biosync. I believe that it's good to work with your body. When you're hacking into something, you're getting permission. You're going somewhere without permission, sorry. You're hacking into some place because you don't have permission. But the truth is, when you biosync, not biohack, but when you biosync, you can come into the fullness of what you were created to be. So I'm intrigued by these subjects. I'm intrigued by the mystical realm, what Christianity has called the mystical realm, and separated, almost like there are some people who are mystics and some who are not. I'm intrigued by these subjects. I don't, just the fact that you believe in a God that you can't see and that he can come live in you and you are in him is a mystical subject. So I'm looking forward to diving into all these subjects: supernatural healings, transportations, how crazy things are going on all around the world. Like, what is the deal with the end times? Talking about these subjects with different people that are doing different things all around the world. And all of this in context with secure relationships, the context of family, the context of kingdom. What is kingdom and what is church? Why are they different? How come this even eventuated? That I never even heard about the kingdom for the first 4 years. I never really heard about kingdom properly for the first 4 years that I met Jesus, and how Jesus preached the kingdom. He didn't preach church. And how the Bible says that this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached all around the world before Jesus comes back. What does that mean? And so I'm super, super excited to go into all this kind of stuff. This is episode 1. I'm just giving you an introduction. In the last 8 months, I've had the privilege to travel to India twice, to America twice, to Malaysia, Vietnam, seen a whole bunch of stuff, and connect with a lot of people that are doing great things. In episode number 2, you're going to hear from my friend Rishikesh, or Rishi, who lives in India, who's had this experience of raising the dead. He has raised 2 people from the dead, and there are multiple people that are doing this all around the world, and this is something Jesus did. And so I'm excited to bring that out here and talk about it and go into these subjects and have casual conversations with people about all things spiritual, natural, soulish, and about the heart. I'm super pumped. So that is me. I look forward to taking you on this journey with me, covering all these subjects. I look forward to everything that is about to unfold through this podcast. The whole idea behind Fuse Life is to fuse every aspect of your life together. Even heaven coming on earth, which was Jesus' prayer, was infusion. There was a fusing taking place of heaven on earth. And I'm really, really pumped to go into this subject. No holes barred, no fear, because God is love and there's no fear in him. And just to explore this with no specific agenda other than truth. And truth brings freedom. So I'm super pumped. Thank you for joining me on this episode. Please pass this on, share it with people that you think might be interested in this kind of a journey. And if you're on this kind of a journey, please reach out to me, message me. I'd love to be in touch with you. And I'm looking forward to everything that's going to come from this. So episode number 1, that's us. Let's do this thing.
Faith and patience. Faith and patience. Patience means allow it to happen. Stay the same. Stay persistent. Keep going. Faith, know that it can happen at any moment. Get excited because it can happen at any moment. You were so close. Don't quit now. Keep pushing. You got this.